Hey friend, please subscribe. 1 second for you. Big deal for me.
Corbin had just said something dumb about how you can tell everything about a woman by her shoes when I walked into the gastropub on Fulton. The place still smelled like fryer oil and spilled beer, and the shuffleboard was stained with years of bar fights and buffalo sauce. I slid into the booth across from them and ordered a seltzer. No point drinking with these two if I wanted to leave with my blood pressure under control. Before we start, tell us which city or country you're listening from. Let's see which corners of the world we've gathered from today. Thanks. And now the story. I'm Sam Gordon. I'm 32, living in Grand Rapids, Michigan. I run a small aviation business. Charters, logistics, parts maintenance. Basically, I keep other people flying while I barely have time to breathe. Nights like this were supposed to be my version of downtime. They never were. Corbin spun his Mustang keys on the table like a fidget toy. Dorian was already mid-rant about how men pick with their eyes and women with their calculators. I'm telling you, Dorian said, tapping his beer glass like it owed him rent. Hot girls chase status. It's evolutionary. It's not personal. I hadn't said a word yet. I was thinking about my mom, Laurel, who built her bakery from a trailer and never asked for more than a clean apron. About my dad, Harlan, who used to play guitar on the street until she told him to come inside and warm up. They didn't care at all about status. There are beautiful women who are also kind. And sharp, I said. Simple. Corbin leaned back, grinned like I just admitted I still believe in Santa. Sure, and somewhere there's a unicorn paying rent on time. He looked at me and said, Okay then. 3 months. You find a woman who's got the looks, brains, and kindness. She agrees to marry you. Mustang's yours. He said it like it was a joke, but I could feel the hook in it. That car was his baby. Cherry red, manual shift, no traction control, just raw steel and bad decisions. Dorian jumped in like a game show host. Rules, no money flex, no luxury dates, no gifts, no Instagram. You're broke, straight up. I looked at them, then at my hands. The left one was calloused from a busted fuel coupling I fixed myself last week. The right one was already reaching for a pen to sign the bet in my head. You serious? I asked. Dead serious, Corbin said. That car's yours, if you win straight up. No cheating, no sob stories, no jet money. I nodded, stood, and held out my hand. Deal. They both shook on it. I felt my pulse hit a little harder. Maybe I was just tired of maintenance logs and half-eaten gas station sandwiches. Maybe I was tired of my own excuses. That night I drove past my apartment and went to the warehouse I rent off 44th Street. Upstairs, there's an old studio I use for storage. I threw a mattress on the floor, grabbed a blanket out of a moving box, and sat there with my phone in my lap. I opened every app that made me look like I had a life, deleted them one by one. No luxury flights, no hangar selfies, no dinners in Maui, no watches in wine bars. It felt like scraping paint off your own skin. Then I laid back on that old mattress, stared at the beams in the ceiling, and let the cold air settle in. I didn't know where I'd find her, but I knew I was starting from zero, and that was exactly the point. She hummed a phrase in French as I stepped out into the cool night, just under her breath, notes tight, rounded like she'd practiced them 1,000 times. The lobby lights flickered behind me, and I almost turned around just to hear it again. I didn't. I walked out like a man who didn't just get spun sideways by a woman holding a mop and a quiet melody. The Camry was parked 3 blocks down. It rattled when I started it. I drove home with her voice stuck in my head like static I didn't want to clear. 3 nights later I went back. Open mic again. $5 entry. No assigned seating. I wore the same jeans and a hoodie with a busted zipper, grabbed the cheapest coffee from the corner stand, and leaned against a pillar near the back. She was there again. Same slate gray polo, same bucket and earpiece. Different song this time. English, not French. Some old jazz standard she barely mouthed along to while wiping down a railing. I didn't interrupt her. I waited until intermission and caught her near the cafe counter, refilling napkins. You always mop to music? I asked. Beats dead silence, she said, tossing the empty packet wrapper. Plus, it's good practice. For what? She tilted her head. For staying sane. I asked if she ever sang in the open mic herself. She gave me a flat look, not mean, just firm. You ever fix an aircraft engine in front of 200 strangers? Point taken, I said. That was the rhythm of our next few encounters. Short bursts, nothing forced. She worked, I hovered. No flirting, no pushing. I told her I came for the music. She nodded like she didn't quite believe me but didn't care enough to argue. One night, someone canceled last minute, and the MC stalled for time. Sharon rolled her eyes and muttered, "Every single time," then disappeared behind the curtain with a mop, like she planned to beat someone with it. I laughed, and she heard it. You think it's funny when amateurs flake? No, I said. I think it's funny when you look like you're gonna body slam a poet. That got a half smile. The next time I showed up, she was at the cafe counter wearing a different polo, navy with a grease smudge near the collar. She poured 2 black coffees before I said anything. Sugar's over there, she said, jerking her thumb. No cream? I asked. This ain't a hotel, rich boy. I must have flinched because her face softened a hair. Relax. It's a joke. You just got that vibe like you used to drink flat whites from places with marble countertops. She wasn't wrong. We talked about music. Nothing deep, just songs stuck in our heads. Teachers who didn't suck. The stuff you tell someone who doesn't need to know everything yet. She mentioned her grandma, Agnes. Lived with her full time. Sharon worked nights so she could stay home during the day. No daycare for dementia, she said. You either show up or you don't. Her tone didn't shift much, but I could hear the weight behind it. I nodded, sipped my coffee, and didn't ask any follow-ups. The next night I brought up a daytime meetup. Public place, I said. Low key, noon tacos. You pick the spot. She squinted. Why noon? No bar lighting, no mixed signals. You can leave before the dinner check. She looked amused. If you don't talk over the singer, and you actually show up on time, maybe. Maybe? Strong maybe, she said, already turning away. I walked out feeling like I'd won something without cheating. The next couple of visits were quieter. She was always working, sometimes cafe, sometimes janitorial, but I stayed on the edges. Bought a ticket, drank cheap coffee, and made room for her schedule. One night the mic ended early, and the hallway emptied. I was finishing a paper cup of coffee when I heard her hum again. Same French line, same crisp accent, but fuller this time. Confident. I stopped in my tracks. That song again, I said. She blinked, then shrugged. Can't help it. It's stuck. Where's it from? Old solfege piece. My high school teacher used it to train pitch. Most kids hated it. And you? I still hum it when I mop puke off the tile, she said. So I guess I didn't hate it that much. I asked if she ever thought about doing music again. She looked down, then up. Sometimes. But dreams don't wait for bus schedules. The way she said it hit harder than anything I'd heard from the stage that night. I walked her to the corner, even though she didn't ask. She waved off a ride again, same as always. I text my bus route and my dad. Keeps the routine solid, she said. I respect that, I told her. She paused, then added, It's not about fear. It's about control. That line stuck in my chest. Back in the Camry, I played the radio low and drove home with the windows cracked. I didn't realize I was humming the same exact notes until I pulled up to the warehouse. That melody had lodged itself in my head, like a quiet dare I hadn't accepted yet. The next Saturday we met at the farmer's market by the Civic Green. Outdoors, loud, nowhere to hide. Sharon wore a zip-up hoodie and jeans, her hair tied back in a way that made her look even younger than 29. I bought us lemonades, and we walked slow through the booths. She paused by a jam stand and asked the woman selling it where she sourced her berries. The answer must have been good, because Sharon smiled and bought a jar with exact cash. She didn't lean in. She didn't linger close. She walked beside me like someone giving the road a test drive. I respected that more than I can say. Every 10 minutes or so, she'd check her phone and text her dad, Randall. Just quick updates. Leaving the stand. Heading toward park bench. She didn't ask if I minded. She just did it. I didn't mind. We got tacos after that, from a spot where you order at the window and hope they remember your number. We sat at a painted table that wobbled every time I reached for my soda. She made fun of my choice, beef with no salsa, and I made fun of hers, fish with 3 sauces and some unpronounceable cabbage mix. When we finished, I asked what her weekends usually looked like. She said, mostly laundry, meds, and tracking down the remote when Agnes hides it in the freezer. That was the first time she mentioned her grandma by name. Agnes. She was a music teacher, Sharon said. Taught for 30 years. Piano, choir, theory, everything. She used to correct church hymn harmonies under her breath. Sounds like a badass, I said. She was, she said. Now she forgets where she is by lunchtime. The way she said it, flat, not bitter, told me she'd already been through the guilt phase and landed in the work. She wasn't hoping for sympathy. She was just naming what her life was. Your mom help out? I asked. Corinne thinks Agnes is faking half of it, she said, sipping her soda. Thinks it's just laziness or boredom, like brain fog is a choice. I shook my head. What about your dad? She nodded. Randall's the good one, insurance guy, keeps the peace, offers tea when mom starts yelling, says things like, let's all breathe. I knew that type. The kind of man who keeps the house from burning down by pouring water under the door and never asking for thanks. After lunch, we walked to the library where there was a guest speaker giving a short talk on Detroit jazz history. It was a weird crowd, half high school kids who got extra credit for showing up, half older folks who lived through the Motown years. Sharon was into it. She nodded along, tapped her foot during the clips they played. I barely followed the structure of the talk, but I followed her face. When the crowd cleared, we walked toward the exit and past a bulletin board with community flyers pinned up. One of them caught her eye, a voice and solfege workshop, 4-week course, Thursday evenings. She stepped closer, read the fine print, and traced her finger over the date range like she wanted to memorize it. You thinking of applying? I asked. She blinked, then slipped her phone out and snapped a picture. Only if the night bus lines up, otherwise no point. She said it like wanting something was dangerous, like getting excited about it would guarantee it slipped through her fingers. I said, if you do, I'll sit in the cheap seats and clap obnoxiously. She smiled. You'll need to learn how to clap on beat first. I waited until the next morning to make the call. I didn't give my name, just said I was curious about the donor-supported funds tied to the workshop. They told me there was a wait list and a small number of anonymous backers who occasionally covered fees. I said thanks and hung up. My wallet stayed closed. The point wasn't to buy her a slot. The point was to make sure the path was clear if she wanted it. The rest of our dates stayed bright in public. Cafes, park benches, thrift stores, the zoo on a discount Tuesday. She always texted Randall. I never pressed past what she gave. And then, that week, Dorian ran one of his dumb dating columns. He wrote about a buddy doing a no-frills relationship experiment. No labels, no wallet flash, just raw personality. No names, no locations, but it was too close. That night, Sharon texted me a screenshot of someone else's Instagram story quoting the column. She added one line under it. Your friend? I answered, yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't know he was running it. She replied, so are you performing for him or for me? I stared at that text for 5 minutes before typing, just you. I'm here, not playing a role. But I get why that's hard to believe. She didn't reply after that. Next time we saw each other, it was Saturday again. We grabbed burgers and fries and sat outside on a concrete ledge near the food court, next to a fountain that didn't work half the time. I told a dad joke about a tomato crossing the road. She rolled her eyes so hard I thought she might walk away. Then she flicked a fry at me. It hit my shirt dead center and left a grease spot the size of a quarter. We both stared at it for a second. "That's what you get for that joke," she said. I looked down at the stain and felt something in my chest shift, like the tiniest knot had loosened. "Grease is a good look on me," I said. "Keep telling yourself that," she shot back, then sipped her soda and looked away like the moment wasn't a big deal. But it was. That grease spot, that was proof someone chose to be near me, not because of my last name or my hangers, or the fact that my bank account could clear 5 digits before noon, just because I made her laugh badly enough to throw a French fry. On the walk back to the Camry, I didn't try to hold her hand. I didn't ask when I'd see her next. I just matched her pace and stayed there until we reached the sidewalk where her bus came. I waited until she boarded. She waved from the window. I waved back. Then I turned around, walked back to my car, and tried not to smile like a fool. Dorian's group text was still buzzing, but I didn't touch it again. I turned off notifications, set the phone on my nightstand, and stared up at the ceiling. The French phrase Sharon always hummed played in my head, like it had settled in for good. That week, Sharon asked if I wanted to come over on Sunday. Middle of the day, windows open, no agenda. "She might call you anything from Stan to Roosevelt," she warned. I said, "I've been called worse." Agnes met me at the door. She had a cardigan buttoned wrong, socks that didn't match, and eyes that snapped right to me like she was sizing up a stranger on her lawn. "Harold," she said with a grin, "you finally brought the turnovers." Then she laughed at herself, like she knew she missed the name but liked the rhythm of it anyway. "Sam," I said, "but Harold works if it buys me another turnover." She pointed at the small bakery box I was holding. "You brought 2. That's an even trade." The apartment was warm and a little crowded. Music books stacked high on an end table, a tin of random tea bags wrapped in rubber bands, a digital clock blinking the wrong time on the stove. There was a little jazz playing from a radio on the counter, some slow swing track I couldn't place. I handed her the turnovers, raspberry and cream cheese, made by Laurel just that morning. No ribbon, no tag, just a box. "My mom runs a bakery down in Easttown," I said. "Started it in a trailer after marrying my dad, who used to play guitar outside diners for tips. She brought him in and gave him a kitchen job before they had walls." Agnes tapped the table with one finger. "She sounds like a smart woman." "She is," I said. "You get your looks from her or the street musician. Let's say it's a bad split." That got a laugh out of Sharon from the kitchen, and I saw Agnes's eyes flick toward her like she'd been waiting to hear that sound. A few minutes later, after a bite of pastry and a bit of tea, Agnes tilted her head and asked, "Do you know Autumn Leaves?" "I can whistle the first line," I said. "Then do it. Let's see if I still remember how to follow." I did, just slow and easy. She hummed along in perfect pitch, and right at the second phrase, she sat up and said, "Drop your jaw on the falling, not the leaves. That's where the breath belongs." It was so sharp, so exact, I could see who she'd been. When Sharon stepped away to take a phone call, Randall checking in, Agnes leaned across the table and said, low and clear, "That girl is steel with a sweater on top." It hit me in the chest. After that visit, Sharon and I stuck to our daylight rhythm. Secondhand stores, music events, bus routes mapped like lifelines. Then one day, she asked if I'd be up for a river walk. "Still daytime," she said. "Still public. But a little more room." I said yes. She texted Randall our route and made me show my license before we left. I took it out of my wallet like I was going through airport security, and she nodded like I passed the test. The Camry made a coughing sound on startup, and I almost apologized for it. But she didn't flinch. "I like this car," she said. "It doesn't lie about anything." We drove slow, parked near the trail, and walked a quiet stretch of the Grand River. She told me she'd gotten into college after high school but turned down the acceptance. "I knew Agnes was slipping before anybody else did," she said. and Mom wasn't going to stop yelling long enough to figure it out. So I stayed. There wasn't regret in her voice, more like a quiet ledger, choices made, nothing owed. You still think about going back? I asked. Not the way you think I mean. I don't dream of dorms and majors. I just miss learning, the shape of it. She stopped to tie her shoe, and when she stood up, she said, I thought maybe that solfege workshop would scratch the itch, but I don't know if I'll have time. You got time to walk a river, I said. Barely, she replied, but she smiled when she said it. Back at the car, she stood next to the passenger door and looked at me for a second like she was measuring something. Then she kissed me on the cheek. Quick, clean. It was the first time she touched me like that. I nearly tripped over the rear bumper like a 16-year-old with sweaty palms and a bad pickup line. She smirked. You okay? Totally fine, I said, even though my heart was trying to climb out of my throat. That night, back at the warehouse studio, I sat on the mattress and heard myself humming the same French phrase again. I wasn't even conscious of it at first. It just came out, soft and round like a memory that finally had space. I picked up my phone, scrolled past Dorian's last 10 texts, and sent him one line. Stop writing about me. He wrote back 5 minutes later. Got it. But that line between personal and public is a little blurry, bro. I didn't respond. I set the phone face down and listened to the fan buzz in the ceiling. Agnes had looked me straight in the eye and saw something under the jokes and the cheap coffee. And Sharon? She didn't hold my hand on that walk, but she also didn't keep me 10 steps behind. For a guy who used to build relationships like transactions, that walk by the river felt like the biggest yes I'd ever gotten. I was on Agnes duty that afternoon. Nothing complicated, just making sure the TV didn't get too loud and her tea steeped long enough. Sharon had run to the pharmacy for a refill, said she'd be back in under an hour. She gave me that look right before she left, the one that said, don't screw this up, but also, I'm trusting you because you've earned it. Agnes was in her recliner, humming under her breath with a blanket tucked up to her chest. I set the tea beside her, flipped to a black and white movie on low volume, and balanced a slice of gas station pizza on a paper plate on my knee. That's when Corbin called. I hit speaker without thinking, fingers greasy, mouth full. Yo, he said, sharp and stupid. How's the 3-month clock, Romeo? I should tune the Mustang before you stall out. The words hit sideways. I glanced down the hall, checked that Agnes was still dozing. My stomach dropped like I'd been caught stealing from the register. She's not a clock, I said, heat rising, and the car means nothing if she isn't with me. The truth of it slapped me in the throat the second I said it, because both things were true, but together they sounded like a confession, one she never asked to hear. And then I heard the softest click behind me. I turned. Sharon stood in the doorway with a white paper bag from the pharmacy, and that expression that didn't blink or soften. She set the bag down on the counter like she was afraid to drop it, then folded her arms. What model year is the car? She asked. Her voice wasn't loud. It was almost too calm. I hung up on Corbin like the phone had turned to fire in my hand. Listen, I started. Don't, she said. It was a stupid dare, I said. From before I even met you, before I knew you. And I didn't... Her hand came up. Not to slap, not to threaten. Just a wall. Please leave, she said. No yelling, no tears. I stood there, holding a crumpled paper plate with half a slice of pizza sliding toward the floor. Agnes peered in from the hallway, her voice small and confused. So soon? That cracked something. I nodded, swallowed hard. Yeah, I gotta go. I walked out slow, didn't slam the door, didn't beg. On the porch, I exhaled like I'd been holding my breath for a year. That night back at the studio, I watched the fan spin and wondered how a single phrase, what model year is the car, could hit like a blade. And because fate likes to twist the knife, Dorian's latest column dropped that same night. Another piece about modern love stripped of performance, Another anonymous jab at the setup he swore he wouldn't touch again. It didn't name names, but anyone who'd seen us at the hall, or followed enough side accounts, could fill in the blanks. I didn't find out through him. Someone waved the article at Sharon while she was cleaning up after a community event. One of the ushers apparently thought it was hilarious. She didn't. That was the last rope. She didn't text, didn't call. I sent her one message, just one. I'll be here when you want to ask anything. No pressure. She didn't reply, and I didn't follow up. Because here's the truth nobody wants to say. When someone draws a boundary, and you climb over it just because your feelings are louder, that's not love. That's control wearing a kind tone. So I shut up, and I sat in the silence. The Camry's keys felt like dead weight in my jeans. I stared at them on the counter and hated what they meant. Hated that a part of me, the part that used to close deals with a handshake and a gift card, had let a car sit between my heart and my mouth. 3 days later, I walked into the gastropub like a man with one bullet left. Corbin was already there, feet up, watching a replay of a vintage drag race on his phone. He looked up, smiled. "So, how's the... You wrecked it." My voice didn't rise. I didn't need it to. He blinked. "What? That call? That joke?" I said, stepping in closer. "You blew it up for a laugh." "I didn't mean for her to hear." "Doesn't matter. You said it like it was still a game." He opened his mouth, then closed it. For once, he didn't crack a joke, didn't try to smooth it with charm. "You think this is about a bet?" I asked. "It's not. It's about respect. You just reminded her she was part of a dare, not a decision. And that's on you." Corbin rubbed the back of his neck. I thought pushing you might, hell, I don't know, wake you up. You were buried in hangars and cargo routes. You hadn't looked anyone in the eye in a year." I stared at him for a long second. "Then why couldn't you let me handle it once I actually did look at someone?" He didn't have an answer. I turned, walked out, and let the door swing shut behind me. Back at the studio, I dumped the Camry's key on the counter like it owed me money. The fan overhead clicked against the beam every fourth rotation. That was the only sound. I didn't sleep. I didn't work. I just laid there and listened to the click. And when I finally closed my eyes, it wasn't to dream. It was to shut out the version of me that ever thought winning was the point. The flyer landed on the bar like a slap. Bright yellow, printer ink still damp, corners curled from sweaty hands. 2 teenagers had brought it in, barely old enough to shave. One of them asked the bartender to tape it near the service window. I didn't have to read the name. I saw the photo and felt my stomach bottom out. Agnes. I stood, grabbed the flyer, and said I knew the family. The kid looked at me like I might be trying to steal it. "Not taking it," I told him. "Just making a call." Outside, I hit the number listed and said my name the second the line picked up. Randall answered. His voice cracked halfway through. "Hello?" "She left around dusk," he said. "Took the Buick. Didn't tell anyone." "Keys?" I asked. "Spare set. We didn't realize they were missing." I asked if the police had been called. He said yes. Local unit was canvassing by now. Then I told him I might be able to get someone else involved. Coulter was already halfway to his truck when I got him on the line. He didn't say much, just asked if it was a dementia case and if it had been longer than 1 hour. I said yes on both. 10 minutes later, he pulled into the lot behind the gastropub in a boxy SUV with paint peeling on the hood. Daisy, his bloodhound, popped her head up from the back like she'd been asleep, but heard the assignment in the engine noise. Coulter tossed me a pair of nitrile gloves and said, "You don't touch anything unless I say so." I nodded and climbed in. We started near Agnes's building, but the Buick was already gone, and we had no idea what direction she'd taken. Then a patrol car called in a match. Older model Buick, light blue, parked half on the sidewalk near the municipal green. We pulled up behind it. The car looked abandoned, headlights off, driver's door shut, but not locked. Coulter got out, cracked the passenger side open with a gentle hand, and leaned in. "Steering wheel, seat, and door handle," he muttered. Daisy didn't hesitate. She sniffed each spot like it was routine, then dropped to the pavement and started tracking in a slow, deliberate line. We followed her past a broken playground, across a side street, and along a fence that backed up to the music school. By the time we reached the backside of the property, it was close to midnight. There was a long, concrete retaining wall there, with faded white staff lines painted on it, an old music-themed mural that hadn't been touched up in years. Agnes was sitting on a bench just to the left of it. She had her purse in her lap, and her eyes locked on the lit window of a second-floor classroom where someone was practicing slow vocal scales. I slowed down and approached from the side. "Agnes?" I said gently. She didn't respond. I took off my hoodie and wrapped it around her shoulders. She flinched, then blinked up at me, confused. "Harold?" "No, Sam," I said. "You remember me?" She gave me a small nod. "You brought the turnovers." Coulter came in behind me and called it in on his radio, calm and steady. Daisy walked up, sat right next to the bench, and leaned her head against Agnes's knee like she'd done it 100 times before. I pulled out my phone and texted Sharon. Found the car. Tracking near school. Found her. Warm fluids. Coming. No read receipts. No reply. I kept sending them anyway. It felt like knocking on a door in the middle of a thunderstorm, hoping someone was home. Randall met us curbside in front of the apartment. Face pale. Hands shaking. Corinne was behind him, arms folded tight like she'd been holding them that way for an hour. Agnes looked up at them from the back seat and asked, plain as day, "May I go home now?" It wasn't a dramatic line. It wasn't meant to cut. But I watched Corinne's arms fall as if something snapped in her. Sharon stepped out the front door when she heard the car. She didn't look at me. She didn't say thank you. She just moved straight to her grandmother, got her inside, and made sure she was warm. That's how I knew this wasn't about me being some hero. I stayed outside with Coulter. He lit a cigarette and scratched Daisy behind the ears. "She did good," I said. "She always does," he said. "Doesn't make it easier." "She been through this a lot?" "Too much," he said. "Kids, elders, hikers, dementia. People think they're fine one minute, then they're not." He looked at me for a long second. "Happens fast. Don't blame yourself," he added. Corbin showed up 20 minutes later, walking slow with his hands shoved in the pockets of a gray coat that looked too thin for the weather. He stopped on the sidewalk near the tree line. Didn't say anything at first. When I looked over, he raised his chin a little and said, "I'll fix what I can." He didn't try to explain what that meant, and for once, I didn't argue with him, because maybe fixing didn't start with clever words or engine work or gift keys. Maybe it started with standing still, finally shutting up, and letting the consequences echo a bit. I watched the apartment lights flicker as someone moved through the kitchen. Daisy sat down on the curb and yawned like she'd just finished a long day. And I realized I hadn't exhaled since I saw that flyer hit the bar. The next morning, Sharon got pulled aside before her shift by the assistant manager at the concert hall, the one with the gelled hair and passive-aggressive clipboard. He waved a printed copy of Dorian's column like it was a tabloid scandal, then started muttering something about staff conduct and maintaining professional image. She almost lost the shift. Over a paragraph. Over a man who liked to hear himself type more than he liked to think about consequences. I wasn't there, but I heard about it from one of the cafe servers I'd tipped too well one too many times. I didn't call Sharon, didn't barge in or try to white knight it, but I didn't stay out of it either. That afternoon, I scheduled a quiet meeting with the HR director. I brought a printed timeline, screenshots of public posts, and a short signed note from Coulter confirming the volunteer search hours and Agnes's official missing persons status. "Why are you doing this?" the HR director asked, frowning. "Because she didn't ask for any of it," I said, "and she sure as hell didn't write that column." The write-up vanished. No formal apology. Just a memo about training updates and sensitivity standards. Sharon never found out why the issue evaporated, and I didn't tell her, because if you're doing it for the applause, you're not helping. You're performing. A week later, the education office sent her an email. Confirmation she'd been accepted to the 4-week voice workshop, tuition waived, fees covered by the community fund. She texted me a screenshot of the message with one line under it. How? I stared at it, then typed, community donors. I stopped there, backspaced the rest, didn't hit send on what I wanted to write, because that would have made it about me again. Later that night, I went back to the gastropub, found Dorian in the corner booth, mid-bite of some monstrous grilled cheese with tomato stacked 6 ways. I slid in across from him, didn't order anything. Hey man, he said, half chewing. Didn't know you were coming in. We're done for a while, I said. He froze with the sandwich halfway up. What? You can keep your column, I said. You can write about yourself, about your hot takes, but not about me, not anymore. He put the sandwich down slowly. It wasn't even specific. It was personal, I cut in, and you knew it. He looked at me for a long second, then nodded. You're serious, he said. Yeah, I told him. Finally. He didn't argue after that, and to his credit, he didn't publish anything else about me. That same week, Corbin picked up the phone. Not to call me. He called Sharon. I didn't ask him to. I didn't even know he had her number. But he told her everything. He used the ugly words, bet, wager, Mustang. He didn't sugarcoat it, didn't turn it into a speech. He told her the truth that had been sitting under all the jokes and the engine talk, that he'd planned to give me the car for my birthday anyway, that the dare was never meant to be about her. It was supposed to get him back out into the world, he said. That's it. I didn't know he'd meet you. He admitted that he liked her too, not in a creepy backhanded way, but with respect. She's the kind of woman you look at and realize you've got work to do, he told me once. That's all I meant. Sharon didn't forgive him on the spot. She listened, said she needed time. And Corbin, for once, let the silence stay. On my side, the business tried to pull me back in with both hands. One aircraft grounded for a sensor recall, another shorted out on a cargo run to Indianapolis, and a contractor in Dallas missed a deadline by 5 days. But I didn't let it take over. I answered the calls I needed to, delegated the rest. I'd built a team for a reason. For the first time in years, I didn't let the work define every waking hour. At night, I drove. Just around the block sometimes, or past the concert hall, slow enough to catch the glow of the lobby without pulling in. I didn't try to see her, didn't text, didn't circle back like a man begging for attention. The Camry rattled on the turns, the streetlights hummed overhead, and I sat in the silence, waiting for a sign I hadn't earned yet, waiting without expectation. Because that's the line between pressure and patience. One asks for something back, the other just hopes. I was already on the bench when she showed up. Same park where we'd passed flyers and laughed about taco orders. The sun was low and mean, angling through the trees like it was daring people to look straight at it. Across from me, a kid in a red hoodie was trying to dribble 2 basketballs at once, eyes locked down, tongue out like concentration could physically hold the rhythm together. Sharon walked up slow, hands in her jacket pockets. Her hair was pulled back tighter than usual, and her mouth was set in a line that didn't invite small talk. She sat beside me but didn't lean. No speeches, she said. Deal, I replied. We sat quiet for maybe 20 seconds before I broke it anyway. I'm sorry, I said, for the bet, for not killing it the second I met you, and for the column I didn't write but still let happen. She didn't nod, didn't brush it away. Did you mean what you told Corbin? I meant every word, I said. The car means nothing if you're not in the picture. She stared ahead at the court where the kid had dropped one ball and was chasing it into the grass. And the company? She asked. Mine, I said. Aviation logistics, charters, cargo, maintenance. I own the whole thing. She blinked. Once. Then again. How many people work for you? 36 full-time, a dozen contractors, I said. And no, I don't walk around bragging about it. But I should have said something sooner. I was trying to follow the rules, the ones Dorian added, and I should have thrown all that out the second you mentioned last buses. I hate being tested, she said. I hate that I turned into the kind of guy who'd test someone like you, I told her. Sometimes that's the same sentence, just split between two mouths. That was the first moment she looked right at me. Really looked. We didn't rush anything after that. We laid it all out like a worksite checklist. No more friends in the middle. No columns. No surprise gifts. Public dates until she said otherwise. Regular check-ins, especially when Agnes had rough days. I opened the Notes app on my phone and typed them in, line by line. "You're really writing that down?" she asked. "Accountability," I said. "Hard to screw up a list that's right in your face." She smirked a little, then pulled something from her coat pocket. It was the printed acceptance letter for the workshop, the 4-week solfège course. "I got in," she said. "That's amazing," I said. She watched my face like she was scanning for fingerprints on a bolt. I added, "If you find mine on that paper, I did something wrong." She held my stare for a beat, then tucked the letter away. "I need you to meet my parents," she said. "Okay," I replied. It was that simple. The meeting happened the next evening. Randall brewed coffee and sat at the table with his hands folded like he was waiting to hear a pitch he'd already decided on. Corinne hovered near the hallway, arms crossed like someone had dared her to be polite. I didn't bring anything. Not flowers, not turnovers. Just myself. I told them what happened. The bet, the silence, the parts I got wrong, and the parts I was trying to fix. Corinne didn't say a word for a long time. Then she turned to Sharon and said, "I'm sorry for what I said about your grandmother." She didn't cry. She didn't break. She just said it like a person who'd been wrong too loudly for too long. After that, things settled. No hugs, no blow-ups, just a weird sort of stillness. Outside, as we walked to the curb, Sharon reached for my hand, held it for half a block, then let it go. And that was enough. More than enough. On the drive home, I took the long route. Didn't turn on the radio. Didn't call anyone. I let the silence stretch all the way from her sidewalk to the warehouse studio. It didn't feel heavy anymore. It felt like a field you had to cross on foot. No shortcuts, no rides, just steps, one at a time. 4 weeks later, I stood just off stage behind a cracked plywood divider, while Sharon's name echoed over the little PA system in the community hall. The showcase wasn't fancy. Folding chairs, program pamphlets with the margins misaligned, a guy in the back filming on a phone with 20% battery. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. Some people clapped on the downbeat, some on the up. The acoustics were tinny. None of it mattered. She stepped up, gave the pianist a small nod, and sang. Not to stun or show off, just clean vowels, solid breath, every line balanced like she cared about each word. No runs, no tricks, just a steady note held with full intent. Agnes sat in the second row, dressed in a floral cardigan with a brooch that didn't match. Randall sat beside her, clapping off tempo like it was his job to be a beat behind. Agnes's smile stayed constant the whole time, like she was listening to her own lesson plan coming back through the walls. I pulled out my phone and tapped the countdown. Start, June 1st today, day 76, August 15th, at 9:42 in the evening. Still inside the window. The crowd thinned out after the last number. Some people stayed to say thank you. Some made excuses to bolt early. I asked the coordinator for 2 minutes on the stage. No mic, no setup, just space. Sharon was putting her folder away when I waved her over. "Come up here," I said. She gave me a look like she thought I might start another checklist, but she followed anyway. The stage felt smaller when it was just the two of us. I held out my hand, palm open. A plain silver band rested in the center. No diamond, no box. "I want to build a life where the small things are enough," I said. because the big things were never the point. She looked at me, not the ring, not smiling, just taking it in like someone hearing a language they half remember. I didn't kneel. I stayed level. "Will you marry me?" She let out one breath through her nose that sounded half like a laugh and half like relief. "Yes," she said. I swallowed harder than I expected to. Randall stepped out from behind the wing curtain, holding Agnes's elbow. Corinne followed, arms loose at her sides like she'd finally let something go. We took a photo under those tired stage lights. It came out grainy, crooked, and better than perfect. Outside, the lot was half empty, and the brick caught the last bit of amber from a street lamp. Then I heard the engine. Low, familiar, rumbled like something you couldn't fake. The red Mustang pulled to the curb and idled smooth, headlights cutting a line across our feet. Corbin stepped out and tossed me a key across the short distance between us. "Runs cleaner than you remember," he said. "Drive it like someone who's got his hands back on the wheel." He handed Sharon a sealed envelope. Her name wasn't on it. Mine was, scrawled in thick marker. She passed it over without looking. Inside, a second key on a dark leather tag and a short note in block letters. "Plan to give this without a bet. Thanks for getting him back to people." Dorian showed up 10 minutes late, jacket crooked, hands jammed in his pockets like he wasn't sure if he'd get punched or hugged. "I'm sorry," he said, "about the columns, about being careless." He looked at Sharon, then at me. "I want to write something better," he said. "Voice class scholarships, Alzheimer's resources, real stuff. Not you, not your story, the things that matter." I nodded. "You can. But you fact-check it twice. Every word." Corbin pulled me aside while the others lingered by the steps. "I meant what I told her on the phone," he said. "I liked her because she's decent. And that's exactly why I'm happy she chose you." He tapped the Mustang's hood. "Don't make me regret my good taste," he added. I didn't have a clever reply. Just nodded. Sharon came over and brushed her fingers across the hood like it was breakable. "Sunday car," she said. I nodded again. That's what it deserves to be. We got married the last Saturday of September, under a short ivy arch behind the community center, where Sharon had once mopped confetti off the tile. It wasn't a big crowd. We didn't want one. Agnes sat front row with a small corsage pinned to her cardigan, and her foot tapping slow under the chair like there was a beat only she could hear. Laurel made the cake, lemon with raspberry in the layers, no fondant, just buttercream and precision. Harlan borrowed a guitar from a friend and played a tune soft enough that the officiant had to pause and laugh before continuing. Corbin snapped photos on a thrifted Polaroid like it was worth more than the lens it came with. Dorian poured coffee, didn't bring a notebook, didn't ask to quote anyone. During the toasts, we told it all. The dare that almost ruined it. The bloodhound that found her. The key with a note that reset the whole game. I kept my hands on Sharon's shoulders through the whole speech. Said just enough and didn't explain the rest. Work didn't vanish. I still had invoices and grounded planes, sensor recalls, late shipments, all the usual. But I stopped burying myself in the gears. I told my managers more than I used to, trusted them with fires I would have hoarded before. I stopped hiding the money like it was a trick. I also stopped flashing it by accident. Sharon saw the hangars eventually, met some of the team. She asked what she wanted to understand, left the rest alone. Agnes had a few solid months, then a few more that got strange and cloudy. We learned the difference between a wandering mood and a wandering body. I installed higher locks, left notes on the cabinets. Coulter came by one afternoon, showed us how to keep scent away from the door. Daisy left a trail of fur on the rug that stayed there longer than I expected. The assistant manager from the concert hall? HR moved him. Not fired, just shuffled somewhere else with a nice quiet note in his file about poor documentation practices. We didn't throw a party, but decency wins, even if it limps across the line. Dorian kept his word. He wrote a clean, well-sourced piece on the Voice Workshop's scholarship program and early-stage Alzheimer's resources for caregivers. He added a correction at the top of his next column that said, "Last month, my tone was careless about real people." It didn't fix everything between us, but it was the first brick in something better. I set up a scholarship in Agnes's name through the Hall's community fund. Small, one voice class per quarter, anonymous. Sharon found the listing on her own. She looked at it, then at me, and didn't say a word. Just smiled like she knew and was choosing not to say it out loud. We still had the Camry, still rattled on turns, still needed a new tire we never got around to replacing. I drove the Mustang early on Sundays. No one else on the road, no destination, just curves and air. Then I came back, parked it, and we took the Camry to get groceries. Sharon sang while she cooked. Not for anyone, just for the space. She'd hum in French sometimes while slicing onions, and Agnes would chime in, just a note behind. Like she still remembered the shape of the sound, even if the day's name was gone. When Agnes passed, it was quiet. No ambulance, no chaos. Just one long exhale and a stillness that settled into the couch cushions. We had the bench installed near the music school, right where we'd found her that night. The plaque read, "Listening seat for Agnes." First time I sat there alone, I didn't cry, didn't talk to the air like some movie line. I just listened. Through the wall, someone was rehearsing. Sharon's voice, sharp, sure, cleaner than the day we met. And I didn't need to check the time or the weather or the calendar. I knew I was exactly where I should be. Would you ever forgive someone if you found out your relationship started as a bet, even if they changed? If this story hit you, leave a comment. Tell us what you think, or just say it was a good one. That support means everything to this channel. And if you haven't yet, hit like and subscribe. It's just one click for you, but it helps us a ton. Love you guys.
YouTube picked this for you. Tap it. Let's see if they guessed right.